so long. 'Cause I have wandered through this world.
Well, good morning, and welcome to the next installment in the Dr. Sababa series, the next volume, the next casebook of Dr. Sababa. We're recording this as an adjunct to the original launch that was done last week in an effort to recruit and hold the attention of some new viewers. So let's continue with this. And let me talk to you about the Dr. Sababa series. The Dr. Sababa series is 3 volumes of 5 books thematically based on the Book of 5 Rings by Miyamoto Musashi, who was a 15th century Japanese samurai. There is the Book of Fire, the Book of Air, the Book of Earth, the Book of Water, and the Book of Void. The first 2 books, Spring and Summer, are in the casebook of Dr. Sababa, and the talk today, the author reading today, is about the Book of Autumn, the next casebook of Dr. Sababa. What is the Dr. Sababa series about, you may well ask? The Dr. Sababa series is a savage satire about the fast-fading era of the medical savant, soon to be succeeded by committees, AI computer algorithms, and the cult of collaboration, extinguishing forever the glory of the clinical knight errant. For those of you who did join us in September of 2019 for the launch of the casebook of Dr. Sababa, you may find some of these slides are extracted from that, but I think they're necessary as a base for understanding the next volume. A few housekeeping points. Please ask any questions you have via my website. There is a frequently asked questions, which is also available on my website on Google Drive. And I'd like to send a big shout out to Murray Letterman McIver for being my IT guru. The Sababa series is a work of fiction, and fiction is described as literature in the form of prose, especially novels that describes imaginary events and people. I tried to make this point very, very succinctly in the disclaimer that I put in the first volume. This is a work of fiction, and I mean it. I also put a disclaimer in this volume, the next casebook. I still mean it. So if you think you see yourself, you're wrong. Why did it take so long for me to write this series? First of all, the topics are exceedingly complex. The characters are close to me. I did this job for over 30 years. It felt like I was at work again, and I'm retired. One acquires perspective from distance, and it took time to run out of reasons not to write this book or this series. The case books seek to answer the questions, what is Dr. Sababa? Where is Dr. Sababa? And most importantly, who is Dr. Sababa? What is Dr. Sababa? Dr. Sababa is a super specialist. He's an internal medicine specialist. He has knowledge that no other men have. He's on staff as a clinical assistant professor at the University of British Columbia. Where is Dr. Sababa? Dr. Sababa lives in Harbor City. He works at the Harbor City Regional Hospital. He works in their ICU. And while this may be what the ICU looks like before Dr. Sababa is on call, this is what the ICU looks like after Dr. Sababa is on call. Dr. Sababa also works in the Harbor City Emergency Department. He also works in the medical wards. Not this medical ward, because this medical ward is at the Massachusetts General Hospital. He works in this medical ward, which is in our system. Dr. Sababa has an office, private office, lovely private office, actually. Pay no attention to the writing on those signs. This is Dr. Sababa's office. He has a ramp, which ambulances can take patients to the hospital. He has a G4 Mac that his medical office assistant, Mercy, uses. He has manzanita flowers when they're in season. And he has a no Fruit Loop sign right over Mercy's desk. Dr. Sababa has a Cabernet examining table. He has a residence room. And he has an electrodiagnostic room where he does stress tests and other things. Sababa lives in a homestead on a lake. It's a tough neighborhood because there's piranhas in the lake. Who is Dr. Sababa? Is Dr. Sababa normal? Is he boring, uncharismatic, obliging, humble, reverent, selfless, friendly, caring, socially adept, self-critical, and polite? Nope. Dr. Sababa is not unlike these other two characters. His personality is unconventional. It is magnetic, charismatic, musical. He is condescending, arrogant, and sarcastic. He's misanthropic, antisocial, self-indulgent, aloof, cold-blooded, and scientific, and he lacks basic social skills. He's able to rationalize his behavior, and he's rather brusque, especially when he's occupied in a case. There's things that these expert consultants have in common. They're brought into cases that have proven too difficult for other investigators. They're brilliant minds, able to think outside the box. They have mind-blowing observational abilities and deductive skills and special esoteric knowledge. They can determine a great deal from just looking at a person. They know a lot about everything. They're polymaths, extraordinarily gifted for minutiae. They're passionate about knowledge for its own sake. They're a bit quick to come to conclusions after the briefest examination of the circumstances. They're very lazy unless they're looking into something that intrigues them. They are totally indifferent to the people they work for. And they view patients and clients as annoying, yet necessary variables. They are committed to helping others for the mystery itself. And they're driven by the challenge to solve whatever puzzle is at hand, and they're good at it. The inspiration for Sherlock Holmes was Dr. Joseph Bell. For House was Holmes. And no one knows what the inspiration for Dr. Sababa was. Dr. House is separated. Sherlock Holmes is single. Dr. Sababa is happily married. Sherlock lives in London. House lives in Princeton. And Sababa lives in Harbor City, BC. They have their own poisons: cocaine in the case of Holmes, hydrocodone in the case of House, and Pinot Noir for Sababa. These are heroes who possess the power to produce coherence and restore order out of random, distressing events. The critical element is the resolution of the puzzle rather than the restoration of the person, although it is a bystander casualty. Not patient-centered or client-centered in any way. There are their approaches. Dr. Sababa has a few accoutrements that the other two don't have. He's got a Colombian leather briefcase, a little black book of remedies, a Lippmann Master Cardiology brass and black stethoscope, a dimpled, indented white Honda Civic, and an M drive, a music library, and a secret drive hidden deep inside the hospital computer network, on which he has 5,000 songs that he plays at critical moments in his ministrations. He also has gumboots, which he occasionally wears in the wee hours if he has to drive into the ICU to attend someone. There are requirements to become this kind of consultant. First of all, you have to do a lot of tests. And secondly, you can make less than a few friends along the way. His consults, his referrals range from the general to the more specific. His nemesis, which he's always up against, come in threes. They're the suits, they're the snowflakes, they're the charlatans. The suits are the easiest ones to handle. They're panels of experts with no expertise. They interpose themselves between the patient and the physician. The big oxymoron is health authority. They don't know what they're doing, but they make policy. And they have pretty logos. They ration healthcare, but they earn great salaries. And they provide contracts for the physician to paint himself into a corner, which Sababa has defined in terms of his equation of medical bureaucratic inequity. X is equal to power over knowledge plus accountability. In any situation, X should be 1. You should only have enough power that matches your knowledge and your accountability. For the bureaucrats, X is infinite, not so much because they have infinite power, but because they have no knowledge and accountability. And conversely, X for a physician is 0, not because they don't have infinite knowledge and accountability, but because they have no power. There are snowflakes and charlatans. Even in Harbor City, there are charlatans. But Dr. Sababa takes these charlatans in stride. Well, not always. Let me go through the cases that constitute the 3 volumes. The 2 books in the first, in the casebook of Dr. Sababa, had the following subjects. Here's the case of the ultimate artery, the case of the broken heart, the case of the Cornelian dilemma, the case of the Parthian shot, the case of the syncopated rhythm, and the case of the lush vegetation. The second book's contents consisted of the case of the flushed fisherman, the case of the melting man, the case of the pretty bird, the case of the Sumatran mosquito, the case of the deadly tree, the case of the double whammy. In this volume, the next casebook of Dr. Sababa, there are 6 cases, as there will be 6 in the last casebook of Dr. Sababa. The case of the universal veil, the case of the orange faller, the case of the tumescent tattoos, the case of the Congo stain, the case from the crack of doom, and the case of the sensitive smurf. This is a Zoom meeting, and this is an author reading. So I should probably read you an excerpt from the book. The excerpt I've chosen is from the case of the universal veil, right up front, right at the beginning. Here we go. Hello? The young man appeared to be speaking to no one in particular. 2 wireless earbuds protruded from his head, as white as the porous ceiling panels through which his gaze escaped the nursing station on the 5th floor of Harbor City Regional Hospital. I'm paging Dr. Sababa, he said. Congratulations, said the disembodied voice. Now what? It's Dr. Praj Barmal, sir. There was a stutter. I'm your new medical resident. Okay. The team leader says you're on call today, Praj said. She called me to the medical ward to see a referral. Okay. He's standing on the ledge outside his room. That will make the physical examination more challenging, Sababa said. I've tried to talk to him. And? He said it made him want to jump sooner. On my way. Click. A few minutes later, the stairwell door opened for a stocky, tan, middle-aged man. Below, a bouncing Medusa of black curls, a Littman Master Cardiology black and brass stethoscope draped over his shoulders. He carried a well-used Colombian leather briefcase, the inside of which had held secrets of survival. "What you got?" he asked. "I'm sorry," the young resident spluttered. "For what?" "I'm sorry? You just said that," Sababa countered. "Look, Mowgli, this is what we do and how we do it. I ask you about the patient. You tell me. Then we fix the patient's problems. Now, how hard is that?" Mowgli was a Kipling character, Praj protested. A naked, feral child raised by an old bear who taught him the laws of the jungle. "My point exactly," Sababa said. "Now let's try this again. What you got?" "Tim Leary," Praj began, 23-year-old VIU student admitted early this morning with abdominal pain, vomiting and diarrhea, headache and visual hallucinations. He had a seizure in the ER and another one in the ward. In between, he was awake but couldn't talk. Probable Todd's paralysis. "Named after Robert Bentley Todd, the inventor of the hot toddy." "What's that?" Praj asked. "Brandy, cinnamon, sugar, and water," Sababa said. "Don't they teach you anything in medical school these days?" "I'm sorry? Except self-deprecation?" Sababa said. "Go on." "Yes, please go on." Sababa turned to the source of the encouragement, shivering at his powers of recognition. "We'd like to resolve the little problem of our new base jumper client," said the pants-suited woman with the Valentino Garavani silk scarf. "Before he slips the surly bonds of earth, puts out his hand and touches the face of God." She clutched her $100 clipboard like she was walking through a dark alley. "Praj, I should introduce you to the new floor 5 head nurse, Samara Morgan," Sababa said. "Professor Morgan." Samara's pupils constricted. "Viha has designated me an influential educator. I'm the team leader and care coordinator." "We've met." Praj related the rest of Tim Leary's history. "Amazing how low you go to get high." Sababa perused the chart. "I resent that." Samara tightened her scarf. "I wasn't talking about you," Sababa said. "I was referring to your cosmonaut client." "What do you mean?" Samara asked. "Leary has no history of mental illness, no suicidal ideation, and was admitted with abdominal symptoms, hallucinations, and 2 seizures. His pupils were dilated, and his heart rate was elevated on admission." "And?" Samara pursued. "It's a toxidrome." "What's that?" she asked. "He's taken a hallucinogen." Sababa punched a few keys on the nursing station computer, selecting a tune from his music library on a secret drive hidden deep inside the hospital computer network. Allman Brothers filled the hallway. "Which hallucinogen?" Praj asked. "It's a pleasant autumn morning," Sababa raised an eyebrow. "Life on a ledge in the season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. You tell me." "Dunno." Praj didn't know. "Psilocybin, the psychoactive indole compound in the 200 species of magic mushrooms," Sababa said. "Illegal under international law since 1971. It's a prodrug, rapidly dephosphorylated to psilocin, which then acts as a high-affinity partial agonist on 5-HT2B and 5-HT2C serotonin receptors in the brain. It was isolated by the Sandoz Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann in 1959 and has mind-altering effects similar to those of LSD, mescaline, and DMT. "What's its purpose?" Praj asked. "Rather a teleological question, is it not?" Sababa asked. "What's that?" "Relating to or involving the explanation of phenomena in terms of the purpose they serve rather than the cause by which they arise," Sababa said. "Nobody knows the answer to your backwards question, but psilocybin may have evolved as a defense mechanism, deterring fungi-eating pests by altering this insect's mind." "Like it alters our minds?" Praj asked. "And has for centuries," Sababa said. 11,000-year-old Mesolithic rock paintings at Tassili Najir in the southeastern Algerian Sahara depict horned dancers holding giant mushrooms. Similar 6,000-year-old murals were discovered near the Spanish town of Villar de Humo. In pre-contact Mesoamerica, Guatemalan Mayans used psychoactive mushroom stones in ritual ceremonies. The Aztecs, who ate these mushrooms when Emperor Montezuma II ascended to their throne in 1502, knew them as Tionanactl in Nahuatl, flesh of the gods. In medieval Europe, Hungarians used bolongomba, crazy mushrooms, to prepare love potions, and English botanist John Parkinson wrote about foolish mushrooms in his 1640 herbal Theatricum Botanicum. Psychedelic fungi grow in the gardens at Buckingham Palace. I remember reading author Carlos Castaneda's separate reality books about spiritual effects of psilocybin mushrooms, revered as powerful spiritual sacraments that provide access to sacred worlds. They're called entheogens, the God within, spirituality enhancing agents. American psychonaut Terence McKenna put forward a stoned ape theory in which he proposed that psilocybin helped humans develop better visual acuity and become better hunters. It facilitates openness and ego dissolution and acts as an aphrodisiac to accelerate reproduction. You sound like you have personal experience. Samar raised an eyebrow. A little, Sababa reminisced about a faraway long ago beach in the Philippines. One morning I left early for breakfast at Mila's. She was my queen of paradise, with a strong but warm constitution. I sat at a table overlooking the ocean. The sun was out for a morning stroll. You hungry, Sababa? She asked. Very hungry, Mila, I said. You like omelet? She asked. Sure, I said. You like mushroom omelet? She asked. Sure, I said. You like special mushroom omelet? She persisted. Fine, Mila, I said. Fine. And Mila brought me my omelet. It was good, but I hadn't counted on it getting better until it did. The first thing I observed was a silver shimmer that came in with the waves onto the shore. Then it lagged behind a bit and flowed as jewels in the surf. When it went three-dimensional and animated, I became suspicious. The sky flashed purple and pink, and the ocean green, and my Buddha Frank materialized in the middle in a new skin of brilliant bronze. How do you like your omelet? Asked Mila. Fine, Mila, I said. Fine. Well, call the kitchen and tell him to put it in the food, Samara said. He's freed up a bed. There is something else, Sababa mused. What else? Not sure, Sababa said, but it's unusual for this situation to occur in someone without comorbidities or the ingestion of another substance. What's the treatment, she asked. Only supportive, he said. If I can get to him and through to him in time. Sababa made for the open window. Outside was a young man standing transfixed, his arms extended out to his side. Tim, Sababa called. Are you okay? Don't come tomorrow. Don't come alone. Come together, right now, over me. We're all here for you. Sababa held out his hand. What did you take beside the mushrooms? To fathom hell or soar angelic, take a pinch of psychedelic. The hospital grounds under him shimmered, full of matchbox cars and miniature people. Isaac Newton discovered gravity in 1687. Before that, people could fly. Tim looked up at the sky and the tilted horizon. The wind whipped his face. His toes shuffled to the edge. The mushroom he had eaten was like falling in love. He couldn't know if it was the real thing till it was too late. In the rarest tranquility of that day, he grew the most wonderful feathers. Blue danced into gray. The race to the concrete took 4 seconds. It was like nothing he'd ever experienced before. It was like committing suicide. The air under him fled from his lungs, and the vacuum it left sucked back his eyes in their sockets. If you live it up, you won't live it down. The only sounds Tim made were the worst they'd ever heard. A loud smacking thud of breaking ribs and tearing organs, reverberating loud enough to shatter the silence and rupture his soul. The meaning of life is that it stops. Sababa stared at his empty hand. I need to tell you how to read the case books, because I write like this. You don't need a medical degree to enjoy it. There is a lyrical component to it. You can just sail on. If you have some knowledge, there's an analytical layer, and there's an existential layer at the very top that combines all two of them. I've had some reviews of the original casebook, the first volume. Good reviews. I haven't had any bad reviews. I've also had a couple of reviews for the next casebook, even though it's just being launched. Again, I'm quite impressed with them. What I'm working on now, and coming soon, is the 3rd volume of the Dr. Sababa series. The last casebook of Dr. Sababa, where medicine goes off the rails. Where can I get the Dr. Sababa series? This is the Japanese website, so don't pay any attention to the prices. They're in yen. You can get the Dr. Sababa series everywhere, except Audible for the moment, because they're way behind because of the pandemic. You can also get it from the library. Again, if you have any questions, please ask them through my website. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to bringing you the last volume in the Dr. Sababa series. Thank you, and goodbye.
Doctor, my eyes have seen the years and the slow parade of fears without price. Now I want to understand. I have done all that I could to see the evil and the good without hiding. You must help me if you can. Doctor, my eyes